Appamada's programmes and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. So, how is everyone? Where is everyone at? Any burning questions? That kind of introductory stuff.
Shall I go first, since I'm not on mute?
Sure.
So I'm ready to do my first line of sewing of my frame to my main part.
Great.
So can I just check? Can I ask a question now?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
I'm sewing through, but you shouldn't see it on the reverse. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And if possible, avoid even pinning through it, because it's possible that the width of the frame on the back may be smaller than the width of the frame on the front.
Okay.
And so if your pins puncture the back or the silk, that may end up being visible.
Okay, good. Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any questions about starting the stitch or anything like that?
I don't think so, unless there's anything you think I need to know.
No, I don't think so. I'll just briefly say it is okay to start when you come up, to start with a knot in one of the corners. Just make sure that you have enough tail on that knot that you can tuck it inside of the frame fully, so that it won't protrude or be visible, and will stay secure as you proceed.
Okay, thank you. And start anywhere?
Start any corner, yeah. All of your corners will be covered by squares, so if there's a little bit of something happens in the corner itself, then it will be covered.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lovely. Look forward to it.
I could maybe go, because I'm just a little behind Jan. So I have one corner left to sew, and then I need to pin the frame to the face. Great.
And are you feeling confident where you're at?
I haven't looked at that bit of the instructions yet. So I'm so no, I don't feel confident, but I feel okay about that. I've taken on board your instruction about not pinning all the way through.
Yes, that is valuable. And when you get there, if you do have questions, if there's ambiguity in the instructions, feel free to ask once you've got that last corner sewn.
Lovely, thank you.
Yes, of course.
I'll go. So I just wanted to add, Claire, in last week's or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, there's a lot on the video exactly about that, about the pinning and the sewing, because I had to undo some stitches. So there was a lot of instruction about how to do it right. So look at that video. So, John, I think, I got like, 2 of the sides stitched.
Right?
It's not so perpendicular at some of the corners, but I don't think, I put it in as best I could.
I think it looks good.
Okay.
Yes, I think that
That's it.
will do great. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm no further on with sewing on the straps, and in fact I've decided to go and unpick the first strap I sewed on because I think it's a bit messier than I'm comfortable with. So I'm actually just going to start again today.
Okay. And yours is a rakusu off on the behalf of someone else, is that right?
Yes, this is for Catherine
Okay.
in England.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
And I'm just continuing sewing the back of inner lines of the rakusu. So that's what I'll be doing today, just continuing with that.
Great. And confident there as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, once you've done the first line, you kind of know how the rest of it goes, don't you? You're kind of on it then.
Yes, unless you've slept since then, in which case, well, sometimes, yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am considering unpicking 8 stitches that I did at the end of the class last time, just because they're not very regular, and I think I should maybe unpick them and redo them. So I'll start with that.
Maybe so. We've been very, or I've been very blasé about picking stitches that we're dissatisfied with. But those of you who are still sewing when the next cohort starts, you may see me walk that back a little bit. So don't be surprised if you start hearing me do that. And I'll just very briefly explain why. When part of the rakusu is for jukai, and in jukai or in a precept ceremony, we receive the precept that I will not speak ill of others, and I will not praise self at the expense of others. And part of sewing, I am mirroring my own my desire to find fault with myself. I want you to like me. I want you to I want to guard myself from your disapproval, from your abandonment, from your, and this is my own stuff. I'm not, this is, when I say me, I mean, I am really, like, when I am a perfectionist, I'm trying to guard against abandonment because I have trauma there, I have pain there. And so to some extent, my judgment of my own stitches is that, is exactly that. I am trying to make sure that you approve of me, that you like me, and it's reflecting in my dissatisfaction with my stitches. And the guidance I've given all of you so far, that you may pull stitches you're dissatisfied with, that is still the guidance for all of you. But perhaps just a nudge to offer a reminder of what the considerations are for pulling versus not pulling here today. And that's not directed at you, Maria. That's just kind of an FYI for the entire group.
No, it's good to think about. It's good looking at them and thinking, is it because they're not absolutely perfect, or is it because they're completely way out?
Yes. Is it structurally a problem?
Balance, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is the little neck piece,
yes.
which I've kind of got to this place where it's inside out, presumably, and I've got to stitch, as far as I understand, across here somewhere.
Yes. So you've just now stitched the neck piece together, or like, so you just pinned it together and it's currently wrong side out. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, I've done the seam bit, and it's wrong side, so it's seam side out.
Yes. Okay. That's where you're at.
And I understand that I've got to sew this bit at the top here together with a running stitch, and then I have to do something fancy with it to try and get it in between the straps.
Yes. Well, yes, you do need to be careful to center it on the straps. Let me confirm. I think the instructions for that phase are not ambiguous. So just outside of, so the just outside of is just to account for when you reverse that you will. Would you like a demonstration piece, or is verbal instruction okay for now, Lynne? Just on the reasoning for sewing just outside that line. It's just to account for the fold of the fabric over once you invert the neck piece. Is that clear?
Right. So yes. So I just sew it like we have done before, like just sort of a millimeter or something, or 2 millimeters above the line,
Yes,
and
that's
then
right.
and then see what happens next.
Great. Sounds like you're set.
Well,
For now. For
now, thank
yes,
you.
of course.
Can I ask a question? So, John,
Yeah.
is what happens with the neck piece is that the strap goes through the there? Does the strap go through it?
Sort of. The neck piece is in the middle. So the neck piece inside out is in the middle, and then one strap goes on one side of the neck piece and one strap goes on the other side of the neck piece, and then you invert the whole package, which is actually really hard for me to visualize. But once you invert it, you end up with the neck piece kind of envelops the whole. Yeah, Trudy's showing it there. It's in between. So you actually have the seam allowance of the neck piece. Trudy, is it possible to show that? Or I guess I've got mine too. The seam allowance for the neck piece is actually in between the two straps, and then the actual neck piece itself and fully envelops that whole thing.
It's sort of slides.
Yeah.
It sort of makes much more sense when you're tactilely doing it.
Yes.
It's one of those verbal things that's a bit like, but the actual doing of it, it reveals itself to you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
With a bit of luck.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Trudy.
Well, just one more question for next week when we're starting to look at cutting is, I have managed to find some white silk taffeta. It was surprisingly difficult, but do we need to starch it before we cut it and send it out, or is the finish on it usually enough?
What do you mean by the finish on it? The way that it will send from the manufacturer, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
We cut then starch generally.
Okay.
So
So
it
you
just makes it.
then you use a spray starch?
That's right. Yeah. A spray starch, fully wet it. Often we'll put it on something on another piece of fabric, so that we just don't cover our ironing board in starch. If you don't mind that on your ironing board, then you can just do it on your ironing board, but almost fully dampen the entire piece and then use the iron to dry it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Right.
John, can I ask a question? I've marked the center point on the straps.
Okay.
And
Great.
I've got the straps both with the seam sides up.
Yes.
And I'm now placing this. Do I have to place it so that it goes towards the seams, or so that it goes?
What is the it in that sentence? Oh, the neck piece.
Sorry, the neck piece.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's the it.
Let me refresh. Okay. Will you repeat your question?
I didn't know whether I was putting this in between the straps from the seam side or from the other side, if that makes sense.
Should be from the other side. The seam. So if you see, so this is the neck piece.
Yeah.
you kind of have to imagine, so this will be facing this way when it's not yet been inverted. That is where the stitch that you're about, that back stitch you're about to do, is in between on this side, and the seam side of the straps is facing away. So in that photo, in the instructions, the
Yeah.
side where the midpoint and backstitch label, that's where the seam side of the straps is in
Okay.
that photo.
So it is. So it goes up from the seam side.
I suppose that wording wasn't clear to me.
I think. So
In that photo, the seam side is at the top of the page.
right.
Great.
Right. Right. All right. I'm not quite clear then.
You are not, or you are?
I'm not.
Okay.
So are both of the straps having the seam side up, and then one of them's going to reverse? That's what's going to happen. So I'm putting it. Perhaps if I
When you
show.
say
That's
when you say showing.
I'm showing you. So I've
Mhm.
got, that's the seam side of the strap, and
So
I'm
it's going to be the opposite. You're going to, I need reference material.
so the other side. All right.
Oh, you can, let me get a piece of fabric real quickly. This is, let's imagine this is a neck piece.
Yeah.
And so this is one strap, and this is the seam side of the strap.
Yeah.
So you, imagine that there's one just like it already on the table here.
Yeah.
So you will be sandwiching in between the two. You will be sandwiching the neck piece about 1.5 centimeters with the seam sides facing that direction.
All right. Okay. So the opposite way to the way that I had them.
Yes, that's right.
So the seam sides are at the top, basically.
For both of them, yeah. And if I heard you mention something about you're inverting one of them, that's actually kind of misleading. If you're referring to the step about take one set of strap ends and push them through the neck piece,
Right.
just set that out of your mind for now. Wait until that's
Wait till I
the
get to
straps.
it.
Yes, that is. I think that Trudy was talking about the kind of the origami makes sense only as you're doing it. That's kind of that's one of those phases for me. So
Right.
perhaps for you too.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you. So I'll pin it there, and I'll stitch it and see what happens next.
Okay, great.
Thank you, John.
Mhm.
John, I've done the final corner.
Yes.
I have a couple of creases in the frame. Should I iron the frame before I pin it to the face?
Yeah. I'd say so. If you have creases, yeah.
Okay. And while I'm doing that, then shall I also, would it help to iron the seam allowances under?
Generally, Anne and I recommend just doing that by hand, using your
Okay.
fingers and pinning as you go.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't remember if that is founded in any particular reason or if that is a thing of convenience. I know that that's part of the risk, is that you run the iron over the stitches on the in the corners, which can cause unsightly shiny bits, if you know what I mean, where the fabric underneath, you can start to see those patterns. If you're very careful, you could probably prevent that.
I guess if I needed to ease any bits that weren't perfectly straight or rectangular, maybe that's a rationale to do it by hand, as you say.
I think, yeah, it certainly would make easing easier. You wouldn't have to fight that crease that you've made.
Okay,
So yeah.
lovely. Thank you. I'll go do that and then be back on camera shortly
Okay.
after the ironing.
John,
Yes.
I'm sorry to ask you this for the millionth time. I can't seem to hold on to the information. About, I'm in the middle of the line and I need to make a knot invisible.
Sure. No, I'm glad that you asked. I'm happy to answer that as many times as you'd like.
Thank you.
There's a couple of different ways. Do you want a way that you've seen before or a way I don't think I've shown?
You have, show me any way you want.
Okay. Okay. So you're in the middle, which means it will be more visible and it will be not reinforced with any corner pieces.
Right.
How would you rate your, in terms of kind of a combined visual ability, dexterity, and sewing skill,
Not good.
combining, not good? Okay,
Not good.
then okay, then let me give you kind of a, there's one that is well suited for where you're at, but it's a little, I mean, even I've got to hold my tongue just right or I'm gonna, I mess it up. So I've never seen anyone do this one without having to, you know, crossing their eyes, trying to get it just right. I've seen the San Francisco Zen Center, their like main sewing teacher, do this particular one, and I saw her tongue peeking out of her mouth like it was a challenge. Okay, that may not actually be true. I don't remember that clearly, but she definitely, you could tell that it was not not as easy as just a.
Start
Wait,
out.
will you remind me? Are you doing? Are you sewing the frame to the face, or are you sewing one of the middle or outer?
I'm sewing the frame to the
To the
silk.
rear. Okay. That makes it quite a lot easier actually. So
Okay.
I'm going to actually start with a knot. So as usual, I'm taking that's the tail end of my thread. I'm going to hold it back towards the eye of my needle.
Mhm.
Going to wrap 4 or 5 times to get a good secure knot.
Mhm.
Pull it off,
Mhm.
make that knot, use my fingernail to tighten it up so it's not a football shaped knot.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another problem. I tend to get football shaped knots.
If you take your fingernail and from both directions, just pinch the thread and then pull until it catches on the knot. If you do that from both directions, it will tighten the knot up a little bit, make it a little more, a little
Okay.
less football shaped. So let's pretend this bottom edge is the edge of your frame that has been folded under, and then the space beneath it is the silk.
Okay.
Actually, just let me use, there's a piece here extending, I'll use that. So this is the silk,
I
and
got
this is your folded frame. So first I'm going to come up, or do you sew, or at this phase, have you been sewing with the fold facing you or facing away from you?
the fold's facing me.
Okay. So if you're sewing with the fold facing you, you will come up wherever you're starting your stitch on the upper,
Bottom. Oh no, from the upper bottom, from the upper bottom side, but the upper part.
yes, from the frame piece. That's the silk and this is the frame.
Okay.
So you'll come from below and you've got this at least an inch long tail here,
Okay.
or well, in my case, actually a little shy of an inch.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to come from the direction that you will be stitching, and you're going to tuck that in the fabric so that it's fully held. Gosh, you can barely see it. It's fully held back, and the following stitches will prevent that from ever becoming revealed. So you can actually pull it tight against the back of the fabric, and you can be confident that that tail will never come out, because as soon as I sew my first stitch, there is a physical barrier of a whole stitch that prevents it from that tail from ever becoming exposed.
Okay. All
Was
right.
that clear? There's kind of a lot going on here.
Yes. I just needed to see it again. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yes, glad to do it. So I'm going to do 3. I recommend trying to do what I'm about to do through it 3 minimum, but if you can do 4, that's even better. And you'll
You
see
mean
what I
like-
mean by,
You mean like as I approach the corner, take 3 stitches approaching the corner?
well, so get all the way to the corner. So what, so imagine the corner is here. I'm almost to the corner. I'm
Okay.
about to make the last stitch that will fit on this back frame edge. So I'm going to come up as though it is a normal, just everyday stitch.
Okay.
When I go down, however, I rotate the material so
Okay.
that the stitch is facing away from me. And this is one of the more fiddly things, but most can do it. I'm going to go down where the stitch ends. And I'm going to, let me poke the needle out so you can see where it is. I'm actually going to, as though the following stitches were a little tunnel for me to go through. I'm going to poke, to work my needle through just this top layer of fabric. I'm going to stay underneath that fabric and go through at least 3 stitches. If you can see the back, which you won't on your frame, but if you ever are doing this, you can see the back, flip it over and confirm that you're not visible on the back.
Mhm.
I do this, and one good thing to do right before you finish tightening it, make sure that you did not loosen these 3 stitches. So
Okay.
this thread here is the thread that comes from these 3 stitches. I just give that a little tug just to make sure they're still taut before pulling this all the way through.
Okay.
So you now have a stitch coming out in the middle of your line of stitches,
Yeah.
which is a little strange and a little unattractive. So you're just going to do a quick, I don't know where my little scissors are. You're going to over tighten. So
Okay.
you're just putting just a tiny bit of tension so that you're exposed maybe a millimeter more thread,
Uh-huh.
and cut it very near to the fabric, and and it should just disappear.
Okay. I'm going to make my stitches and give that a go. Thank you so much.
You're
See,
welcome.
if I can do it this time, maybe I'll start remembering it.
And if you don't, I'm here for that question. That's
Right, thank you.
So John,
almost said. Yes.
just, excuse me, just to clarify, so with all of the stitching, you know, the frame to the face, at all of the corners, should we be ending like that? Because I've been kind of going around if I'm not done with my thread.
If you're going around and it is, it looks more or less like a contiguous stitch, that you've jumped, you've hidden your transfer from one edge to one edge, I think that is okay. Generally, however, one stitch from here to here. That's what I recommend and what I suggest
I
we
see.
all you aim for.
Oh,
If you're
okay.
fine, one thing that is helpful to do that is to have some sort of method for, excuse me, for measuring out how much thread you need. And I always recommend 3 times as much thread as the stitch is long. So I just, you know, if I've got this piece here that I need thread for, I run it once, move my finger, run it twice, run it 3 times, and cut.
Okay, so that's pretty long for the long end of the piece.
It is, and that's when the when you thread your needle, which I have lost track of. When you thread your needle, you'll be able to, so it will be a very long piece on that long edge. And this is what I suggest you try doing first. If the piece still ends up being too long, too unwieldy, is knotting itself up all the time, you can go back to a shorter piece. That is fine. But that's where this method of pulling a lot of your excess thread out on the, so this is the end that will be in the fabric here. This thread, pulling this as far as you can without it getting stuck in the fabric every stitch, that's a good way to account for all of that extra thread. So you don't just have just this tiny little tail here. You have this big long piece that also help. Yeah, exactly. And it also helps you keep from accidentally pulling it off the needle.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, I found my needle.
John, can I have a moment
Yes.
when you're ready? So I am completely confused by this now. Have confused myself. I mean, I've done this business here of turning it.
It looks great.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is that, you know, when we did the straps, there was a part of the strap that was still open.
Yes. It should be fully.
That should be sewn in which case I have done it the wrong way around.
How do you mean? Will you show me? Can you hold it up? So where is the part that is still open currently?
In here?
Oh yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So that is going to be secured by the pine needle stitch itself.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's not, that never gets sewn closed in the strap itself. Like with the strap as a distinct piece, you're never sewing that closed. It is closed partially by this reversal that you did, and then the pine needle stitch.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. So is that, so then that when the straps come down, they both come down like that with none of the seam showing, presumably?
That's right. When you're wearing the rakusu, you will see the seam side will be out toward my shoulders, toward my arms,
Right.
and the fold sides will be in towards my chest.
Right.
And so yes, and it lays so flat that you won't see it unless you're really, you know, squinting at someone.
Unless you're really squinting. Okay.
Yes.
So do I iron this now?
Yes, iron that now.
Right. Thank you.
And I have a practice question, John.
Yes.
So I've pinned the frame to the face,
Great.
and it's
Looks
laying
good.
pretty flat. And it's hard not to feel a bit proud. And as I've been working, I've been, you know, thinking about how it's not just my effort, and there's your teaching and Anne's teaching and the support of the whole group and the people that make the fabric and grow the cotton and make the pins. but I still also feel a little bit proud alongside that. And I wondered for your perspective on that, and like whether just awareness of that emotion is enough, or if there's more I could do.
I'm a sewing teacher. So I want to say congratulations. Your work is paying off, and your effort, your diligence, and your commitment to this practice is manifesting in the Buddha's robe that you're creating. The particular practice edge you're describing, and what amount of pride is acceptable. Maybe that's something for Dokusan. Maybe that's something to talk about with your teacher, to describe. I know that you're not, it doesn't sound like you're breaking a precept. You're not praising yourself at the expense of others. But yeah, maybe there is more to explore there. But yeah, maybe also some congratulations is warranted. It's not if we haven't been doing it, but there is kind of this robe completion ceremony that some groups do, which is just this very brief, an acknowledgement that you finished sewing the robe. It's done just with the sewing group. There's a celebration of the Jukai itself, and then there's a celebration in Appamada Austin, at least, of the donation and the return process. And in every case, it is a celebratory, congratulatory tone. So congratulations. Your work is paying off, and you've made great progress. The other questions? Yeah, maybe Dokusan.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And yeah, and thank you to you for your support, and to the whole group for your support.
It did look good, though. It did look good. I think you can proceed if you're confident.
Okay.
So John, we're nearly finished, aren't we?
Yes, it completely escaped me.
Can I just check with you before we go where the basting goes on this? Does it go along here? It says to baste in a contrasting thread.
So I would baste that. Let me switch my camera. Please baste that here along this edge. Let me get that all in camera. On the edge away from where you have just folded down that new seam that you created. Baste it here just to make this a nice flat surface for, there's going to be a lot of turning this back and forth, trying to get the needle as perpendicular as possible as you're going back and forth on that. So yes, that's based here.
Just to hold it in place, basically, while you're doing the pine needle stitch.
Yes,
yeah.
That's exactly.
Thank you.
Well, as alluded, we are at the end of our time here. So I guess let's bow out. And if you do have any remaining questions, just raise your hand after we've bowed out, and Maria can make me co-host, or host rather, and co-host, and we can get that answered for you. It's good to see all of you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you so much.
And no sewing next week. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, John.
Happy
Good to see
moving.
you. Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Hope all
It will
goes
be
well.
joyous, as fatiguing as it will be. It will be joyous.
Yeah, it will be all things, John, I imagine.
Thank you.
It will be all things. And see you all soon.
Bye.